The story of a mother's unseen love.
On a cold November morning, 35-year-old Daniel stood in the cemetery watching his mother's coffin being lowered into the ground. Rain fell softly, mixing with the tears on his face. His two sisters, Emma and Sophie, stood beside him, holding each other and crying. Their mother, Margaret, had passed away suddenly from a heart attack at the age of 62. It had been unexpected and shocking. Just 2 weeks earlier, she had seemed healthy and strong. Now she was gone, and her 3 children felt like orphans despite being adults. Daniel looked around at the modest funeral. There were not many people present, just family and a few neighbors. His mother had lived a quiet, simple life. She had never been wealthy or famous. She had worked as a seamstress for 40 years, taking in mending and alterations, working from their small apartment. As Daniel watched the coffin disappear into the earth, he felt overwhelming guilt. He was a successful architect now, living in a nice house in a good neighborhood. Emma was a teacher, married with 2 children. Sophie was a nurse at a prestigious hospital. All 3 of Margaret's children had become successful, educated, comfortable. But Daniel suddenly realized something that made him feel ashamed. In their success, they had forgotten their mother. They visited her maybe once a month. They called her once a week. They were always busy with their own lives, their own families, their own careers. They had taken her for granted. "I should have visited more," Daniel said quietly to his sisters. "I should have spent more time with her." Emma and Sophie nodded, their faces showing the same guilt. They had all been too busy, too caught up in their own lives. And now it was too late. After the funeral, the 3 siblings returned to their mother's small apartment to begin sorting through her belongings. It was a painful task, but it needed to be done. The apartment was exactly as their mother had left it, simple, clean, and filled with memories of their childhood. As they began going through their mother's things, Daniel opened the old wooden closet in her bedroom. Inside were her simple clothes, a few dresses, some sweaters, nothing expensive or fancy. But as Daniel pushed the clothes aside, he noticed something at the back of the closet. It was an old shoebox, worn and faded. Daniel pulled it out and opened it. Inside were papers, lots of papers. Medical bills. Hospital receipts. Prescription papers. Letters from doctors. All dated over the past 30 years. Daniel's hands began to tremble as he looked through the papers. His sisters noticed and came over to see what he had found. As they read through the documents together, the truth began to emerge. A truth their mother had hidden from them their entire lives. A truth that would break their hearts and change how they understood everything about their childhood and their mother's love. As Daniel, Emma, and Sophie sat on their mother's bed reading through the documents in the shoebox, a devastating picture began to emerge. The earliest document was dated 30 years ago, a medical diagnosis from when Daniel was 5 years old, Emma was 3, and Sophie was just 1 year old. The diagnosis said that their mother Margaret had been experiencing chest pains and fatigue. The doctor had recommended immediate tests and treatment. But the next document showed that Margaret had cancelled the appointment. She had written a note on the cancellation form: "Cannot afford. Children need food and school supplies." Daniel felt his throat tighten. He kept reading. Over the next few years, there were more medical documents. Letters from doctors urging Margaret to come in for treatment. Bills for medications that were marked unpaid or payment plan. Records showing that Margaret had a heart condition that had been detected early, a condition that could have been managed with medication and treatment. But she had chosen not to get treatment. She had chosen to ignore her health. And the reason was written plainly in her own handwriting on various documents: "Cannot afford medicine and rent. Children need winter coats. Daniel's school trip is important. Emma's dental work is necessary. Sophie needs glasses. Again and again, their mother had chosen them over herself. She had put off her own medical care to provide for her children's needs and education. She had suffered in silence while making sure they had everything they needed. Emma began crying uncontrollably. She was sick our whole childhood, she sobbed. She was sick and in pain, and we never knew. We never even noticed. Sophie held the medical records with shaking hands. These doctors kept warning her that ignoring her heart condition would shorten her life. They told her she needed treatment. But she kept refusing because she was spending all her money on us. Daniel remembered his childhood differently now. He remembered his mother always being tired, always working. He had thought she was just a hard worker. Now he realized she had been tired because she was sick. She had been working so hard because she needed money for their education, their food, their future, and she had nothing left for herself. "Look at this," Sophie said, holding up a document. It was a payment receipt from 20 years ago. Margaret had paid for Daniel's university tuition, his first year's fees. Daniel had always thought he had received a scholarship. But this receipt showed his mother had paid it herself, in full, from her savings. Emma found similar documents, payments for her teacher training course, payments for Sophie's nursing school. Their mother had paid for all of their education, making it possible for them to become successful. And she had never told them. She had let them believe they had earned scholarships and grants. "She gave us everything," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "She gave us her money, her time, her health, her life. And we never even thanked her properly because we never knew." As the siblings continued reading through their mother's hidden documents, their childhood memories began to take on completely new meanings. Moments they had never questioned suddenly became clear. Daniel remembered when he was 12 years old. He had wanted to join the school soccer team, but there was a fee for the uniform and equipment. His mother had smiled and said, "Of course you can join. I will make it work." A week later, she had given him the money for the soccer equipment. Now, looking at the documents, Daniel found a medical bill from that exact time, a bill for heart medication that was marked, "Postponed, cannot pay this month." His mother had skipped her heart medication so he could play soccer. Emma remembered when she was 15 and wanted to go on a school trip to the capital city. It was an educational trip, but it cost money. Her mother had seemed hesitant at first, but then had hugged Emma and said, "You should go. Education is important. You will learn so much." Emma had gone on that trip and loved it. Now Emma found a document showing that their mother had skipped 3 doctor's appointments during that time because she couldn't afford both the doctor visit and Emma's school trip. She had chosen Emma's education over her own health. Sophie remembered her high school graduation. Their mother had given her a beautiful watch as a gift, something Sophie had treasured. She had been so surprised because she knew their mother didn't have much money. "Where did you get this?" Sophie had asked. "I have been saving," their mother had replied with a smile. Now Sophie found a receipt showing that their mother had sold her own mother's gold necklace, the only valuable thing she owned, a family heirloom, to buy that watch. She had given Sophie her inheritance so Sophie could have a nice graduation gift. "Do you remember when Mom used to say she wasn't hungry at dinner?" Daniel asked his sisters. "She would always say she had eaten earlier, or that she wasn't feeling well, or that she preferred to eat later. But she would make sure we had full plates." Emma and Sophie nodded, remembering. Now they understood, their mother had often gone without food so there would be enough for her children. She had sacrificed her own meals to make sure they were well fed. "And do you remember how Mom's clothes were always old and worn?" Sophie added. "She would buy us new school clothes every year, but she wore the same dresses for years and years. We thought she just didn't care about fashion." Now I realize she was spending all the clothing money on us. Daniel found a small notebook at the bottom of the shoebox. It was a budget journal their mother had kept. Every month, she had written down her income from her sewing work and then allocated every rupee carefully: rent, food for children, school expenses, Daniel's books, Emma's music lessons, Sophie's art supplies. At the bottom of each month's budget, after all the children's needs were met, there was usually nothing left. Sometimes there were negative numbers. And in those cases, their mother had written notes to herself: skip medicine this month. Wear old shoes another year. No doctor visit, children are more important. The three siblings sat in stunned, devastated silence. Their entire childhood had been built on their mother's silent sacrifices. Every opportunity they had received, every comfort they had enjoyed, every success they had achieved, all of it had come at the cost of their mother's health and well-being. And she had never told them. She had never complained. She had never made them feel guilty. She had suffered in silence, with a smile on her face, making sure her children could have better lives than she had. At the bottom of the shoebox, beneath all the medical documents and receipts, Emma found something else: a small diary with a worn leather cover. It was locked, but the tiny key was attached to the diary with a faded ribbon. "Should we read this?" Emma asked hesitantly. "It feels like invading Mom's privacy." "Mom is gone," Daniel said gently. "Maybe she wanted us to find these things. Maybe this is her way of finally letting us know." With trembling hands, Emma unlocked the diary and opened it. The first entry was dated 30 years ago, shortly after their father had abandoned the family, leaving Margaret alone with 3 small children. The siblings began reading their mother's words, words she had never spoken aloud, words that revealed the depth of her love and sacrifice. "Today the doctor told me I have a heart condition. He says I need medication and regular checkups. But how can I afford this when I barely have enough to feed my babies? Daniel needs new shoes, his toes are sticking out of his old ones. Emma needs warm clothes for winter. Sophie needs diapers and formula. They are so small and dependent on me. I am all they have. I must be strong for them. My health can wait." Emma's voice broke as she read this aloud. Sophie took the diary and continued reading the next entries. "Daniel started school today. He looked so happy in his little uniform. I spent my medicine money on his school supplies, but seeing his excited face was worth it. I can manage my pain. I am young enough. My children's education cannot wait. Emma is so smart. Her teacher says she should take music lessons. I found a good teacher, but the lessons are expensive. I will take extra sewing work and skip my doctor appointments for a few months. Emma's talent is more important than my checkups. Sophie wants to be an artist. I bought her paints and canvases with the money I was saving for my heart medication. The doctor is angry that I keep missing appointments, but he does not understand. My daughter's dreams are more important than my health. If I can give them opportunities, my life has meaning." Daniel took the diary and read through more entries, his vision blurred by tears. Daniel got accepted to university. "I am so proud. I told him he received a scholarship, but really I paid his tuition with my savings, money I had been keeping for my heart surgery. The surgery can wait. Daniel's education cannot wait. He is going to be someone important. That is worth any sacrifice. I am in so much pain today. My heart feels weak. But I cannot let the children see. I must stay strong. They are all doing so well. Daniel is excelling at university, Emma is becoming a wonderful teacher, Sophie is helping people as a nurse. Everything I have sacrificed has been worth it. They will have better lives than I had. That is all a mother wants. The diary entries continued through the years, documenting every sacrifice their mother had made. Every time she had chosen their needs over her own health. Every time she had suffered in silence so they could thrive. Every time she had smiled through pain so they wouldn't worry. The final entry in the diary was dated just 1 week before their mother's death. I had chest pains again today, severe ones. I should go to the hospital, but Daniel is coming to visit this weekend and I do not want to worry him. Emma just had a baby and needs to rest. Sophie is studying for an important exam. They all have their own lives now, their own responsibilities. I am so proud of the people they have become. If my heart gives out tomorrow, I will die happy knowing that my children are successful, educated, and kind. Every sacrifice I made was worth it. I love them more than life itself. I only wish I could have given them more. Sophie closed the diary, unable to read further. The 3 siblings sat in silence, completely overwhelmed by the depth of their mother's love and the magnitude of her sacrifices. Their mother had known her heart was failing. She had known she needed immediate medical care. But even in her final week, she had put her children's comfort and happiness above her own survival. She had died because she had spent 30 years sacrificing her health for them. And she had died happy, believing her sacrifices had been worth it, never letting them know the price she had paid. After reading their mother's diary, the 3 siblings were consumed by overwhelming guilt and grief. They realized that while they had been living comfortable, successful lives, their mother had been suffering in silence for 30 years. Daniel stood up and walked to the window, unable to contain his emotions. I am a successful architect, he said, his voice filled with anguish. I make good money. I could have paid for Mom's medical care easily. But I never asked if she needed help. I just assumed she was fine. I was too busy with my own life to notice she was sick. I am a teacher, Emma cried. I teach children every day about compassion and awareness. But I was not compassionate or aware enough to notice my own mother was in pain. She came to my daughter's birthday party 2 months ago, and I remember thinking she looked tired. But I didn't ask if she was okay. I just assumed she was getting old. Sophie, the nurse, was perhaps most devastated of all. I am a medical professional, she sobbed. I take care of sick people every single day. But I didn't take care of my own mother. I should have noticed the signs. I should have insisted she get regular checkups. But I was too focused on my career, my patients, my life. I failed her. Daniel picked up his phone and looked at his call history. The last time he had called his mother was 3 weeks before she died, a brief 5-minute conversation where he had been distracted and rushed. I have to go, Mom, I am busy with a project, he had said. That was the last real conversation they had had. Emma remembered the last time she had visited her mother, 6 weeks before her death. She had only stayed for an hour because she had been in a hurry to get to her daughter's school event. Her mother had seemed like she wanted to talk, but Emma had been checking her watch. I will visit again soon, Mom, she had promised. But she hadn't. Sophie realized that despite being a nurse, despite having medical knowledge, she had never once asked her mother about her health. She had never insisted on taking her to the doctor. She had never used her medical connections to get her mother proper care. She had just assumed her mother was fine and would live forever. We were all she had, Daniel said, his voice breaking. Dad left us when we were kids. She had no other family. She spent her entire life taking care of us, sacrificing for us, giving everything she had to us. And what did we give her in return? Occasional phone calls. Monthly visits that were rushed and distracted. We were too busy with our own lives to spend time with the person who gave up her life for us. The guilt was almost unbearable. They realized that their success, their education, their careers, their comfortable lives, had all been built on their mother's silent suffering. Every degree they had earned, every job they had secured, every achievement they had celebrated had come at the cost of their mother's health and ultimately her life. "She died believing we were happy and successful," Sophie said through her tears. "She died satisfied with her sacrifices. But if she had spent even half that money and effort on herself instead of on us, she might still be alive today." Emma found a photograph of their mother from 30 years ago, young, healthy, full of life. She compared it to recent photos where their mother looked exhausted, aged beyond her years, her face showing the toll of decades of sacrifice and suffering. "We took everything from her," Emma said quietly. "We took her money, her time, her health, her life. And we never even realized it. We never thanked her properly because we never knew how much she was giving up for us." The next day, while the siblings were still at their mother's apartment sorting through her belongings, there was a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Chen, their mother's elderly neighbor who had lived next door for 20 years. "I came to offer my condolences," Mrs. Chen said kindly. "Your mother was a wonderful woman. I will miss her very much." The siblings invited Mrs. Chen inside. As they talked, Daniel found himself asking, "Mrs. Chen, did you know our mother was sick? Did she ever mention her health problems to you?" Mrs. Chen's face showed sadness. "Yes, I knew," she said quietly. "Margaret and I were close friends. We would have tea together several times a week. I knew about her heart condition. I begged her many times to get proper medical treatment, but she always refused." "Why did she refuse?" Emma asked, though she already knew the answer. "Because of you children," Mrs. Chen said gently. "She told me many times that every rupee she earned was for your education and your future. She said her own health was not important compared to giving you opportunities she never had." Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. "I remember when Daniel was in university. Margaret's heart condition was getting worse, and the doctors told her she needed surgery. But she told me she had used her surgery savings to pay Daniel's tuition. She said, 'My son is going to be an architect. That is more important than my old heart.'" Sophie gasped. "She needed surgery. We never knew." "She didn't want you to know," Mrs. Chen explained. "She made me promise never to tell you. She said if you knew she was sick, you would worry and maybe give up your studies to take care of her. She could not bear that thought. She wanted you to focus on your education and your futures." Mrs. Chen continued sharing what she had witnessed over the years. "Your mother was in pain almost every day. I would see her taking extra sewing work late into the night, her hands shaking from exhaustion, because she needed money for Emma's teaching course or Sophie's nursing school. She would skip meals and tell me she wasn't hungry, but I knew she was saving money for your expenses. I remember once," Mrs. Chen said, "Margaret collapsed from exhaustion in the hallway outside our apartments. I wanted to call you children, but she begged me not to. She said, 'Daniel has an important project at work, Emma just had a baby, and Sophie is taking exams. They are busy with their lives. I do not want to burden them.' So I just helped her back to her apartment and made sure she rested." Daniel felt sick hearing this. His mother had collapsed from exhaustion, and he had never known because she had protected him from worrying. "Did she ever complain?" Sophie asked. "Did she ever express regret about her sacrifices?" "Never," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "Not once. Every time we talked about you children, her face would light up with pride. She would show me your photographs, tell me about your achievements, talk about how successful and happy you all were. Her entire life revolved around you. Her sacrifices made her happy because they gave you better lives." Mrs. Chen pulled out her phone and showed them a text message from Margaret sent just 2 days before she died. It said, "My children are coming to visit this weekend. Daniel is bringing his family, Emma is bringing photos of her new baby, and Sophie is going to tell me about her promotion at the hospital. I am the luckiest mother in the world. Reading this message, knowing their mother had died days later without seeing them again, was almost unbearable for the siblings. She loved you more than anything in the world, Mrs. Chen said quietly. Every sacrifice she made with joy because it was for you. Please do not torture yourselves with guilt. Your mother lived the life she chose. She chose love over comfort, sacrifice over selfishness. She was happy in her choices because they gave you the futures you deserved. But Mrs. Chen's kind words did little to ease the siblings' guilt. If anything, knowing their mother had been happy in her sacrifices made it worse. She had suffered for them joyfully, and they had been too blind to see it. In the days following their mother's funeral, as word spread through the neighborhood about Margaret's death, more people came forward with stories that revealed the extent of her sacrifices. Mr. Patel, who owned the fabric shop where Margaret bought materials for her sewing work, visited the siblings. Your mother was a remarkable woman, he said. For 20 years, she would come to my shop to buy fabric scraps and leftover materials, always the cheapest items because that was all she could afford. But whenever she had a little extra money, she would buy small gifts for you children. He showed them his old sales records. Look here, he said. Every December, your mother would save money for months so she could buy each of you a nice Christmas gift. But she never bought anything for herself. Not once in 20 years did she purchase anything just for her own pleasure. The owner of the local pharmacy shared a heartbreaking revelation. Your mother had prescriptions for heart medication that she was supposed to take daily, he said. But she would only fill them partially, buying maybe 1 week's worth when she was supposed to buy a month's worth. When I asked why, she said she needed to save money. I offered her discounts many times, but she was too proud to accept charity. She would say, "Save your discounts for people who really need them. My children need my money more than I need medicine." Father O'Brien from the local church shared that Margaret had volunteered at the church's charity program every Sunday, serving meals to homeless people despite being poor herself. She would always say, "I may not have much, but I have more than these poor souls. And my children are successful, so I am blessed." She never mentioned her own struggles or her health problems. She was always thinking of others. Their mother's co-workers from the sewing factory where she had worked for decades shared that Margaret had turned down promotions multiple times because they would have required working day shifts. She had insisted on working night shifts because it paid slightly more, even though it was harder on her health. "She needed the extra night shift money for your school expenses," one co-worker explained. "She would work all night and then go home to take care of you children during the day. I don't know how she survived on so little sleep for so many years." Emma found a letter in their mother's belongings from her own doctor. The letter, written 5 years ago, said, "Mrs. Margaret, I am deeply concerned that you continue to refuse necessary cardiac treatment. Your heart condition is serious and progressive. Without proper medication and lifestyle changes, I cannot guarantee you will live more than 5 to 10 more years. Please reconsider. Your health must be a priority." Margaret had written a response on the bottom of the letter that she apparently never sent. "Thank you for your concern, doctor. But my children are my priority. They will always be my priority. If I have 5 or 10 more years, that is enough time to see them established and happy. That is all I need." The siblings learned that their mother had been living on minimal food for years. The local grocer shared that Margaret would buy only rice, beans, and cheap vegetables for herself, but would carefully select quality fruits, meat, and nutritious foods whenever her children were visiting. She would say, "My children work hard. They need good food," the grocer recalled. Every person who had known their mother revealed another layer of sacrifice, another hidden struggle, another moment when she had chosen her children over herself. The picture that emerged was of a woman who had lived entirely for others, who had found meaning and joy in giving everything she had to ensure her children could have better lives than she had. And through all of it, she had never complained, never revealed her suffering, never made her children feel guilty or obligated. She had sacrificed silently, joyfully, completely. The revelations about their mother's sacrifices shattered Daniel, Emma, and Sophie. But gradually, their overwhelming guilt began to transform into something else, a determination to honor their mother's memory and to ensure her sacrifices were not in vain. 1 month after their mother's funeral, the 3 siblings gathered again at her apartment, which they had decided not to sell yet. They needed to talk about how to move forward. "We cannot change the past," Daniel said, his voice heavy with emotion. "We cannot bring Mom back. We cannot undo our years of being too busy and too blind to see her suffering. But we can change how we live going forward." "What do you mean?" Sophie asked. "Mom sacrificed everything so we could have better lives," Daniel explained. "She wanted us to be successful, educated, and happy. We are all those things. But are we using our success the way Mom would have wanted? Are we being the kind of people she raised us to be?" Emma understood. "You are right. Mom's sacrifices were not just so we could earn money and live comfortable lives. She wanted us to be good people who help others. We have been so focused on our own careers and families that we have forgotten to give back." The 3 siblings made a decision that night. They would create a foundation in their mother's name, the Margaret Foundation, dedicated to helping single mothers and their children who were struggling with poverty and medical issues. Daniel would use his architectural skills to design affordable housing for single mothers. Emma would volunteer to tutor children from poor families, giving them the educational opportunities her mother had given her. Sophie would use her medical connections to provide free health screenings and treatment for poor mothers who, like their mother, were sacrificing their health for their children. They would also establish a scholarship fund in their mother's name to help children from poor families attend university, children like they had been, whose single mothers were working multiple jobs and sacrificing everything to give them a future. But more than the foundation and the programs, the siblings made personal commitments to change their lives. Daniel promised to spend less time focused on his career and more time with his own children, teaching them the values of sacrifice and compassion that his mother had embodied. He would make sure his children knew their grandmother's story and understood the price that had been paid for their comfortable lives. Emma committed to visiting and helping struggling single mothers in her community, offering them the support and recognition that her own mother had never received. She would make sure these women knew they were seen, valued, and not alone. Sophie promised to use her medical knowledge to identify and help patients who were neglecting their own health to care for their families. She would provide them with resources and support, ensuring they didn't have to make the impossible choices her mother had made. Most importantly, all 3 siblings committed to living with gratitude and awareness. They would never again take for granted the sacrifices others made for them. They would never again be too busy to notice when someone they loved was suffering. They would honor their mother's memory not with guilt, but with action. "Mom gave us everything," Daniel said. "Now we need to give back to others what she gave to us: opportunity, hope, and unconditional love." The siblings also decided to share their mother's story publicly. They wrote articles, gave talks at community centers and schools, and created a website telling Margaret's story. They wanted other children to appreciate their parents while they still had them. They wanted other parents to know that it was okay to take care of themselves, that martyrdom was not required for good parenting. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out sharing similar stories: parents who had sacrificed silently, children who had realized too late what their parents had given up for them. The Margaret Foundation became a movement, inspiring people to be more aware, more grateful, and more generous. But beyond the public work, the most profound changes happened privately in the siblings' hearts and lives. They carried their mother's memory with them every day, not as a burden of guilt, but as an inspiration to live with the same selfless love she had shown them. 1 year after their mother's death, Daniel, Emma, and Sophie gathered at the cemetery to mark the anniversary. But this time, they were not alone. With them were dozens of single mothers and their children, families who had been helped by the Margaret Foundation. The foundation had grown beyond their expectations. In just 1 year, they had provided housing assistance to 20 families, scholarships to 50 students, and free medical care to over 200 low-income mothers. They had created support groups where single mothers could share their struggles and receive help without shame or judgment. As they stood at their mother's grave, Daniel spoke to the gathered crowd. "My mother, Margaret, sacrificed everything for her children. She did it silently, without complaint, without recognition. For 30 years, she put our needs above her own health and well-being. We only discovered the extent of her sacrifices after she was gone." Emma continued, "We can never bring our mother back. We can never thank her properly for everything she gave us. But we can honor her memory by helping other mothers and children who are struggling. We can make sure that no mother has to sacrifice her health silently, that no child grows up unaware of their parents' suffering." Sophie added, "The Margaret Foundation is our way of saying thank you to our mother, even though she can no longer hear us. Every mother we help, every child we educate, every family we support, all of it is in her name and in her memory." The families who had been helped by the foundation brought flowers and placed them on Margaret's grave. Many of them shared their own stories, mothers who had been skipping meals to feed their children until the foundation provided food assistance, mothers who had been delaying medical treatment until the foundation provided free healthcare, children who had been dropping out of school until the foundation provided scholarships. One woman, a single mother named Lisa, spoke through tears. "I was exactly where Margaret was, sacrificing my health for my children's future. I thought I had no choice. But the Margaret Foundation showed me that asking for help is not weakness, that taking care of myself makes me a better mother, not a selfish one. Margaret's story saved my life because it made me realize I don't have to die for my children to succeed. I can live for them instead." Another woman, Maria, said, "I only wish Margaret could know how many lives she is still changing, even after her death. Her sacrifice was not just for her 3 children. Through her story and through this foundation, she is now a mother to hundreds of us." The 3 siblings were deeply moved. They realized that their mother's legacy was growing far beyond what she could have imagined. Her silent sacrifices, which had seemed so small and personal, were now inspiring a movement of compassion and support for vulnerable families. As the ceremony ended and people began to leave, the siblings stayed behind for a few more minutes alone with their mother's grave. They had established a new tradition. Every week, they took turns visiting their mother's grave and telling her about the families they had helped. "Mom, we finally understand," Daniel said quietly to the gravestone. "You taught us by example what real love looks like. Not love that demands recognition or gratitude, but love that gives everything without counting the cost. We are trying to live that way now. We are trying to be the kind of people you were. We are sorry we didn't see your suffering when you were alive," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "We are sorry we took you for granted. But we promise that your sacrifices will not be forgotten. We promise that your story will help others. We promise to make you proud." "Thank you, Mom," Sophie whispered. "Thank you for everything you gave us. Thank you for loving us so much that you gave your very life for us. We will spend the rest of our lives trying to be worthy of your sacrifices." As the sun set over the cemetery, casting golden light on their mother's grave covered in flowers, the 3 siblings felt a sense of peace for the first time since their mother's death. They could not change the past, but they could shape the future in her honor. 5 years after their mother's death, the Margaret Foundation had helped thousands of families. The foundation had expanded to multiple cities, with volunteers and donors supporting its mission. Single mothers had safe housing, children were receiving education, and medical care was available to those who could not afford it. But for Daniel, Emma, and Sophie, the most important work was not the numbers or the programs. It was the daily practice of living with gratitude, awareness, and compassion, the values their mother had embodied and taught them through her silent example. On the 5th anniversary of their mother's death, each sibling wrote a letter to her. They read these letters aloud at her grave, with their own children present. They wanted the next generation to know their grandmother's story and to understand the power of selfless love. Daniel's letter said, "Dear Mom, I am now 40 years old, older than you were when you were raising us alone and suffering in silence. Now that I am a parent myself, I finally understand the depth of your love. I see my own children and I cannot imagine sacrificing my health and life the way you did. Your love was extraordinary. I am teaching my children about you, about your sacrifices, about what real love looks like. Your legacy lives on through them. Thank you, Mom. I finally understand." Emma's letter said, "Dear Mom, I teach children every day, but the most important lesson I ever learned was not from a textbook, it was from you. You taught me that true education is not just about schools and books, but about love, sacrifice, and putting others before yourself. I was so busy teaching other people's children that I forgot to truly see and appreciate my own mother. I am sorry, Mom. But I am living differently now. I am teaching my students about you, about the mother who gave everything so her children could learn. You are my greatest lesson." Sophie's letter said, "Dear Mom, as a nurse, I take care of sick people every day. But I failed to take care of the person who needed me most, you. I now screen every patient for signs of self-neglect and sacrifice. When I see mothers skipping their own medications to afford their children's needs, I think of you. I make sure they get help. I make sure they know they don't have to choose between their health and their children's future. Through every mother I save, I am trying to save you, even though it's too late. I love you, Mom. Thank you for teaching me what true nursing, true caring, really means." After reading their letters, the siblings' children, Margaret's grandchildren who had never met her, placed flowers on her grave. Daniel's son, who was named after his grandmother Margaret, said, "Grandma, I never got to meet you, but I know you through the stories and through the foundation. Thank you for sacrificing so much so my dad could have a good life. Because of you, I have a good life too. I promise to help others the way you did." The siblings realized that their mother's influence had now extended to a third generation. Her sacrifices had not only given her children better lives, but had also given her grandchildren a legacy of compassion and service to inherit. As they left the cemetery that day, Daniel said to his sisters, "Mom's sacrifices seemed invisible when she made them. She suffered silently, and we never knew. But now her sacrifices are visible through the foundation, through the families we help, through the way we live and the values we teach our children. Her silent suffering has become a loud legacy of love." She died thinking her sacrifices were just for 3 children, Emma added. But now thousands of people know her name and her story. She has become a mother to many, not just to us. Her love has multiplied beyond what she could have imagined. "I think Mom would be happy," Sophie said, smiling through tears. Not because of the recognition or the foundation, but because her sacrifices are helping others not to have to sacrifice the way she did. She would want other mothers to get help, to be healthy, to live long lives with their children. That's what the foundation does. That's her real legacy. The 3 siblings walked away from the cemetery together, arm in arm, carrying their mother's love forward into the world. They could not change the past or bring her back. But they could ensure that her silent sacrifices would never be forgotten, and that her legacy of selfless love would continue to transform lives for generations to come. The story of Margaret and her children teaches us profound and universal truths about love, sacrifice, gratitude, and awareness that can transform how we live our lives. First, it teaches us about the invisible sacrifices that parents, especially mothers, make for their children. Margaret suffered in silence for 30 years, and her children never knew until it was too late. This story reminds us to be aware and observant of our parents' struggles. They may be hiding their pain to protect us, but we have a responsibility to see beyond their smiles and to notice when they are suffering. Second, it teaches us that success built on someone else's sacrifice carries a responsibility. Daniel, Emma, and Sophie became successful because their mother gave up her health and life for them. Their success was not truly theirs alone, it was built on their mother's foundation of sacrifice. This story reminds us that when we succeed because of others' sacrifices, we have a moral obligation to use that success to help others, not just to enjoy comfortable lives. Third, it teaches us about the danger of taking people for granted, especially those who love us most. The siblings assumed their mother would always be there, always be healthy, always be fine. They were too busy with their own lives to really see her. By the time they understood her sacrifices, she was gone. This story reminds us to appreciate and cherish our loved ones while they are still with us, to express gratitude not after death but during life. Fourth, it teaches us that love is not always loud and obvious. Margaret's love was silent, hidden in medical bills she didn't pay, medicines she didn't take, meals she didn't eat, clothes she didn't buy. Real love often operates quietly, making sacrifices without demanding recognition. This story reminds us to look for the quiet ways people show love, not just the obvious demonstrations. Fifth, it teaches us about transforming guilt into action. The siblings could have been paralyzed by their guilt and regret. Instead, they channeled those painful emotions into creating the Margaret Foundation and changing their lives to honor their mother's memory. This story reminds us that when we discover we have failed someone, the answer is not just to feel guilty, but to change and to help others so the failure is not repeated. Sixth, it teaches us about the multiplication of love and sacrifice. Margaret sacrificed for 3 children. But through those children's awareness and action, her sacrifices now benefit thousands of families. This story reminds us that one person's love, even if unrecognized during their lifetime, can create ripples that extend far beyond what they could imagine. Seventh, it teaches us that selfless sacrifice is powerful but should not be required. Margaret's sacrifices were noble and loving, but the story also shows that she should not have had to choose between her health and her children's future. Society should support struggling single parents so they don't have to make impossible choices. This story reminds us of our collective responsibility to help vulnerable families. Finally, it teaches us about legacy. Margaret died thinking she was just a poor, unknown seamstress who had struggled to raise her children. She had no idea that her story would inspire thousands of people and create a foundation that would help countless families. This story reminds us that how we live, the love we show, the sacrifices we make, the values we embody, creates a legacy that extends beyond our lifetime. In our modern world where we are often consumed by our own careers, ambitions, and busy lives, Margaret's story is a powerful reminder to pause and truly see the people around us, especially those who love us. It reminds us to express gratitude not after someone is gone, but while they can still hear us. It reminds us to use our success to help others, to transform our pain into purpose, and to ensure that love and sacrifice are recognized and honored. Margaret's silent sacrifice should never have been silent. But now, through her children's work and through this story, her sacrifice speaks loudly to the world about the transformative power of selfless love. The question this story asks each of us is, who in our lives is sacrificing silently for us? Are we aware enough to notice? Are we grateful enough to acknowledge? And when we discover these sacrifices, will we honor them by changing how we live and by helping others?